All right, so what really happened? Are you guys ready for some dates and stuff? Well, not these dates. I know to you guys, if I'm talking about dates, I'm talking about food. No, no, no. I'm talking about historical dates. Okay. Are you guys ready?
Yeah.
All right. So just a really quick thing, okay? I'm just going to, lay out a number of different dates. All right. So I'm just going to take you back a little bit, okay? Really quick. All right. Let me just lay out a word. All right. Really quick, you guys. Don't worry. I'm just going to get you just a little bit, some data here. All right. And hold on. Sorry, that's my son's daily schedule, but let's go like that. Hold on. So, okay. So I'm just going to just share this one. Okay. So when we're looking at what really happened, okay. So the Prophet ﷺ was actually in Medina, because I'm going to take you back really quick. The Prophet ﷺ was in Medina before he had died. The Prophet ﷺ dies at approximately 675, almost 675, 675, the year 675. All right. The Prophet ﷺ, during that time, the Byzantine Empire, which really was considered at the time the Christian empire at the time, was controlling all over the Arabian, and right now, actually, when we're looking at the calendar, all over the Middle East, really. All right, so let's look at the Middle East, okay? All right, it's not an issue of just Middle East, okay? Just want you to pay attention to it, okay? So here we go. So the Byzantine Empire, I'm just going to try to make this map a little bit bigger. The Byzantine Empire was controlling all over this area, all right? So all over the Middle East, including Europe, was actually under the Byzantine Empire. The Prophet ﷺ, as the final prophet, he basically ordered that the Muslims would actually continue in facing whatever power that is preventing other nations from hearing and learning about Islam, which is what is called jihad. So jihad is just about making sure that there is no power, political or whatever power there may be, that is stopping and preventing others from hearing what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had sent. All right. So the Byzantine Empire was at the time feeling that the Muslim community was growing. So they wanted to, let's say, do some sort of a proxy war by what is a proxy war? So it's basically, instead of me, for example, let's say I'm not able to face Jasmine. So what will I do? Jasmine is a big woman. So what will I do? I will entice Zainab to go fight Jasmine. All right. All right. I will entice Zainab to fight Jasmine. And that way, what I'll do, I'll probably give, sorry, you guys, for giving this, okay? But this is, trying to make it into politics, okay? That's how politics works, okay? So what will I do? I don't want to face Jasmine directly, so I will start giving Zainab probably the arms, probably give her money to buy weapons, etc. So in order to do that. So the Byzantine Empire was actually doing some sort of a proxy war with the pagan Arab by giving them the money, by giving them the power, different the arms, the weapons. But then the pagan Arab failed to face the Muslim community. So it was time that the Byzantine Empire felt, well, this is growing. And by them growing, that actually means a growing threat. All right. which basically to them, that meant that they will soon take over the resources. They will soon take over, let's say, geographical territories. That actually means that they're growing. So that's when the whole stereotypical image about the Muslims continued to grow. And of course, let's go to the map right there. And when we speak about Palestine, we cannot whatsoever not speak about the historical sides of it. All right. So here's right there, Palestine. The Prophet ﷺ orders. So the Prophet ﷺ was right here in Medina. So he orders that there would be, because the Byzantine Empire, which was controlling all over this area, actually all over this area to be more specific, all right, and they were gathering in 40,000 troops. The Muslims, all the Muslims, even if we were to put the women, men, and children, would not make up 40,000 at the time. But you're talking about a supreme power at the time. So what the Prophet ﷺ did was he said, well, we can't actually, and that was while he was on his deathbed, we cannot have even this superpower thinking that they can topple the Muslim expansion, because as the prophet, peace be upon him, his mission was to make sure that every person on this planet has the freedom to hear about Islam, to embrace the religion if they choose to, and at least to let them know about the truth. So of course, the Byzantine Empire did not want that. So the Prophet ﷺ said, even if we only have 3,000 troops, we're going to send those troops in order to go. And that was near Jordan. Continue your path and go, even if they are 40,000. And they would continue. But later, fast forward, after the death of the Prophet, peace be upon him, we've had a number of different, let's call them authorities, let's say it that way, Muslim governance that continue to expand left and right. And then those areas become under Muslim power with a matter of just a couple of years. In fact, after the death of the Prophet ﷺ, by 4 years, the Prophet ﷺ dies 11-year Hijrah. By 15-year Hijrah, all this area, including Iran, including Iraq, including this area, not Turkey though, and including parts of Egypt and parts of Libya, was actually under Muslim power. By year 132 Hijrah, meaning after the death of the Prophet ﷺ by 121 years, Islam was already in Spain. Islam was already in Uzbekistan, Tajikistan, was already on the borders of China in 121 years. That's a massive expansion. All right, massive expansion. The expansion was not only in territories, but it was even expanding, even in creating a civilization. In following really quick, after the Umayyad power, the Umayyad dynasty, then comes in the Abbasid. The Abbasid dynasty brought in a lot of let's say civilization, translated a lot of books, translated math from all over the world. So even the science that was taught in India, or taught in China, or philosophy taught in Greece, wherever that may be, it was actually taught in a whole city that was a university in a city called Baytul Hikmah in Baghdad. Fast forward All right, look at this. Fast forward. Look at this, you guys. Fast forward. You get not the Byzantine, but the Mongols. The Mongols were coming from borders of Eastern China. What do? Well, they were atheists. They were determined to take over, and Genghis Khan was determined to take over all this area and go as far as he could be. Genghis Khan was demolishing everything. In fact, the Muslims had actually thought that that was Ya'juj and Ma'juj, Gog and Magog. They thought that that was Ya'juj and Ma'juj. They thought that they were, that's it. This is Judgment Day. This is the day of judgment. There's no way that we can face any of this. In 656 Hijrah, more than 1 million people were massacred in Baghdad. Massacred by the army of the Mongolian army. Everything that it can come across, it will kill it. Every single person, man, woman, pregnant child, everything that was in front of it, they were willing to slaughter it. It was massive. It wasn't until, and in fact, even the head of even the head of the caliphate at the time, which was basically Islamic governance, fled Baghdad. They were so afraid of all this Mongolian invasion that they ran away, and that person ran away all the way. Some of them went to Spain, and some of them actually went to Egypt. But it wasn't until, believe it or not, it was not no Arab, it was actually a slave that was actually from Turkmenistan and Uzbekistan, who was actually sold as a slave. Look at this. He was sold as a slave. He was a big, mighty man, and he had cataract in one eye. And he was sold as a slave, but memorized the Quran in Syria and was trained. And the way they used to train the slaves, they used to be really harsh on training slaves because they were supposed to be soldiers. He was trained, and later he was the one that actually defeated the Mongolian invasion. And look at this, you guys, the difference between slavery in a Muslim era and slavery in other countries. This slave becomes the king. This slave becomes the king. Not only does he become the king, but all the people in the government were actually ex-slaves. Exactly. They were all ex-slaves. Those were called the Mamalik. The Mamalik were actually the government now. Mamalik actually means slaves. They became the government. They became the ministers. They became the head of power. They were the ones to free the Ummah, to free the nation from the Mongolian invasion. Look at that. Exactly. Look at that. How did this happen? Fast forward. These slaves, the Mamalik, were the ones to revive the Muslim nation again and actually create universities and make all these different colleges and universities and make all these different in educational institutions and all these different civilized, let's say, modernity and buildings and monuments. And later, someone else was getting ready. It was the Crusades. Whatever happened? How did you come along? So the Crusades, from a pope, his name is Paul Urban II. He decides, well, he starts creating. Now, of course, the Muslims were starting, of course, with like every other nation, They would grow, and then they started getting weaker and weaker and weaker. The Muslims started getting weaker and weaker and weaker. That's when the Crusades started. Hey, how about we start telling the people that the Muslims were taking over the tomb of Jesus Christ? So what happens? The Crusades spread this rhetoric that the Muslims were taking over the tomb of Jesus Christ, and that's when the Crusades come in. Fast forward, the Crusades, they rule and they would come in, coming in towards from different areas, from different United Europe, France, Germany, Holland, Belgium, and the list goes on and on. They come in, and Turkey was at the time not under Muslim rule, come in and actually invade Jerusalem, killing so many people that the blood was actually up to the knee highs, the knees of the horses, killing everything that they could see. Now that was the Crusades, ruled for a whole 100 years, or 99 to be more accurate. But it wasn't until a guy from Iraq, who was not Arab, who was actually from Turkmenistan, that started trying to collect the Muslim voices. So what does he do? He basically collects the Muslim voices in al-Mosul, in al-Iraq. And then, to make the story short and go fast forward, and then later you get a man also from not Turkmenistan, but actually from Kurdistan, not Arab. Fast forward, Salah ad-Din al-Ayyubi is basically the person to later fight and bring an end to the Crusades at the time. But the Crusades did not end. Still, the Crusades were bringing in more and more and more powers when Napoleon, you guys heard of Napoleon Bonaparte? Yeah. Napoleon, and the list goes on, always trying to regain the control over the Muslims. By how? By trying to, every single time it's a different kind of invasion. During the time of Napoleon, it wasn't just an invasion, but it was also trying to go inside the mentality, to reinterpret so many different things and pretending to be Muslim. And that actually brings in, fast forward, of course, Napoleon was defeated, and of course, later it was, well, let's go and bring an end to the Muslim world and the Muslim power. What do we do? With Mustafa Kemal Ataturk, that's when, and in March 23, 1924, that's when the man from Turkey, he basically announces the end of the Muslim governance, the end of the Ottoman Empire, the end of the Ottoman Khilafah. Who comes in? What happens? This basically brings in the Muslim Ummah into bits and pieces of separation. And who unfortunately was fighting against that was unfortunately fighting against even the Turkish at the time. The Ottoman Empire was actually the Arab themselves. It was actually some of the Muslims themselves. Yes, there was some sort of discrimination, but what did that bring in? Well, that brought in UK, France. You people are behind. How about we help you advance a little? So what should we do? Well, you guys can go eat. What should we do? Let's advance by France, UK, Russia. We're coming in. We'll help you grow. So what are we going to do? We're going to create a mandate. What does that mean? Well, you people are not white. You people are not European. Therefore, you cannot advance. We, as French And as Brits, we will be the ones to help you grow. We will make sure that you will not grow in your power and grow in any way. So we need to create a body that will make sure that you will be busy with it for the rest of your life, at least. Who is that? Well, remember, we'll let the Jews that are in Germany and in those areas, and that's when in 1897, Theodor Herzl decides that he wanted to make in a convention, it's called Basel, where he wanted to make a land for the Jews. And then there were different options. Go ahead. They can leave me. I'll eat my right there. All right. To make a new land for the Jews. And there were different options. There were different options from different countries. And then Palestine happens to be one of them. And that's when they would get back up from UK. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. You guys are super hungry. We'll finish next time, inshallah.